we need to talk about the royal tempers reportedly running the show at the palace. We are in the middle of a quite curious news cycle right now, but it's not new information that Prince William is prone to outbursts, temper tantrums, and his father, King Charles, has a similarly short fuse. Both of these men seem to be triggered by things that do not go their way, or even like slightly go wrong. I'm talking about things like the leaky pen incident or the pen is in the wrong place incident. Can you believe there were two pen instigated events that showed King Charles' temper during his accession? I'm also talking about this video that leaked a few years ago when William confronted a man who he believed was following him and his family on a trail near their private family home. Listen, I'm not saying he was wrong to go pop a bear and get defensive of his family. I'm just saying the reaction was a little outsized for the next in line to the throne, knowing there is a camera trained on you. I'm sorry, you did not need to call that man disgusting. It's to the point where the phrase incandescent with rage might as well be in William's Wikipedia entry because it gets included in coverage of him so often, but it also gets framed in a positive way, more often than not. We are very unwilling to call out this behavior and deem it unacceptable when it is enacted by a royal man. And that's really what I want to talk about today, okay? I'm not gonna tell Will and Kate that they cannot have screaming matches or throw things at each other. That's another thing that's been reported about them. I'm not even here to say if that claim is true. I'm just saying the outsized number of these reports gives me a bit of pause. Especially when you had someone like Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, subjected to exactly one report of staffers feeling like they were being bullied. Remember, we never got any specifics that Meghan allegedly did. And this dogs her to this day. It's kind of blown out into, well, she's bad to staff, like generally, but again, no one can ever seem to name one specific thing she has done. As always, as the Times report that initially wrote up the email that Jason Knopf sent in 2018, it's always about how people were made to feel or felt like she made them feel, being reduced to tears, they can't stop shaking. There may have been a double standard here. Shocking, I know. Walk with me here. Okay, Prince William, as an example, gets called a demanding boss very often, especially in regards to his Duchy of Cornwall. That is the £1.1 billion valued tract of land that he oversees as the heir to the throne. He does work with a chief executive to oversee that portfolio. His name is Will Bax, and he is on record saying that William is pretty demanding as a boss, and that he contacts him via WhatsApp, so text message, on weekends. Last I checked, that is somebody's off hours, as is 5 a.m. Unfortunately for Meghan, who probably saw this amazing work ethic in her brother-in-law and thought that that would be okay, no, that doesn't extend to emails sent at 5 a.m., which specifically say there's no pressure to respond at that time. You can respond during your work hours. You see what I'm getting at here? William, when he is described as pretty demanding, is framed as a leader, a visionary, somebody who expects results, but that's a good thing. Meghan is described as demanding, Duchess difficult. And like, we haven't even heard examples of specific outbursts, screaming at people, yelling obscenities at staff that you force to walk 4 flights of stairs every day to fluff your pillows and arrange your stuffed animals. I'm sorry, you're telling me that no one in the entire time that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor had a royal household complained about his treatment of them? Nobody? Nobody at all? Or was it just that it was reported, it was rumored, it was common knowledge, and people looked the other way, including his mother, Queen Elizabeth II? Or was it really just the fact that one person, that's all we needed, one person to speak up and complain, as happened with Meghan? That's all it would have taken, and that behavior would have stopped. Are you kidding me? Like, be so for real. I am so sick of the excuses. I guarantee you that if Meghan is a demanding boss or was at the palace, like, I'm willing to believe that. I have worked for demanding bosses and I kind of see that with Meghan, just in the way she likes things to be curated to a certain degree of perfection. But that's not a bully. It's especially not a bully if Meghan is surrounded by white men in the same institution who are reported time and time again to treat their staff like dirt or subject them to great bellowing tantrums. The real quote that was used to describe how William is not able to control his temper, by the way. Oh, but he only directs it at his father, the king. that doesn't make it better. The fact that we are able to make excuses and justifications for the Windsor men, say that, well, it's their intent that we need to honor here. They don't mean to terrify their father. They don't mean to come across as rude. They're just, pick your poison, accustomed to things being done a certain way. They are just out of touch with what it actually takes to make these things happen. Okay, then why is the intent never considered from Meghan's point of view? Why is it only the impact that people around her reportedly felt? She left me shaking. I was reduced to tears. Has it struck you that maybe, and I'm not saying those feelings from staffers were not real, but we also have to ask whether the behavior that they were receiving on Meghan's staff may have been jarring because it wasn't coming from a white aristocratic man, and instead they were receiving it from a mixed-race American woman. An outsider, God forbid, acting like they're your boss? The same sense of directness and high expectations, if we're gonna boil everything down to that, gets interpreted differently based on who is directing it. When Meghan entered the institution, I think we also have to remember she had already been put in an outsider role. The headlines racializing her from day one, saying she was almost straight out of Compton, calling out her exotic DNA. That set her up to fail in the system of the monarchy. And it very easily could have led to reactions from her staff that were intensified by this view of Meghan not deserving her place or asking too much now that she has been allowed inside the institution. That is racism, plain and simple. And it was even present when Meghan's own actions were completely laughable for the reaction they received. Do you remember when she closed her own car door? There are still stories written about how this broke or didn't break royal protocol. This makes waves. Anonymous reports of people feeling like they were bullied or victimized by Meghan, conveniently, of course, released days before she and Harry are going to appear on Oprah, constitutes a full institutional review. A review, I might add, that later saw 2 people of the 3 mentioned in Jason Knopf's email rescind their claims, and a review that will never be published. The palace says they have wrapped up this review, but they're not going to release the findings to us. Which, okay, if it's an HR process, I get that that isn't for public consumption, but you were pretty loud in telling us you were going to investigate. Makes you wonder what else about Principal Royal's treatment of staff might have been turned up in the process of this review, because Andrew, William, Charles, Prince Philip even might have been mentioned when talking to staff about treatment. Just a guess. And I'm not saying this just because I want another excuse to take Meghan's side. I do think if there are legitimate concerns about how she treated staff and about how palace processes maybe covered up royal treatment of staff, yeah, let's have that conversation. I just think it's interesting that we only wanted to have this conversation when it was Meghan. Why are the people actually calling the shots, actually holding positions with real constitutional weight, exempt from any questioning over their behavior, consistently cushioned, and not by the cushions being thrown in the Wales's arguments, from any real critique or criticism? This man is 43 years old, and there is a report this week as well that he is being urged to take anger management courses or go to therapy for his rage before he becomes king. I'm sorry, we couldn't have addressed that any time in the preceding 43 years? If we do have a standard, and I'm talking to you royalists, that the monarchy is so important and vital for Britain because it is dignified, it signals tradition and heritage, the people at its center embody service and duty. Don't you want better from them? Don't you want to stop reading reports about the heir to the throne being incandescent with rage and throwing things? Those standards of respect, duty, service should apply universally, in private as well as in public, and not just from the Black American actress who married in.